In the next section of the paper, I try to show that the God that James finds pragmatically meaningful is the God of the Bible. And I'll just close with a final statement from James. Though nothing like a full case has or could be made here, I believe enough evidence has been presented to warrant our seriously considering the claim that the God of William James bears significant resemblance to the God of the Bible. James, of course, was not unaware of this. He made it clear that in rejecting the God of the philosophers, he was not thereby rejecting the God of the Bible. James says, I must parenthetically ask you to distinguish the notion of the absolute carefully from that of another object with which it is liable to become heedlessly entangled. The other object is the God of common people in their religion. The God of our popular Christianity is but one member of a pluralistic system. He and we stand outside of each other, just as the devil, the saints, and the angels stand outside of both of us. I can hardly conceive of anything more different from the absolute than the God, say, of David or of Isaiah. That God is an essentially finite being in the cosmos, not with the cosmos in him. If it should prove probable that the absolute does not exist, it will not follow in the slightest degree that a God like that of David, Isaiah, or Jesus may not exist, or may not be the most important existence in the universe for us to acknowledge. Thank you.
I have one quick announcement before I give him the questions. I'll give him the questions, let him look at it. We have these from Brother Paulson. We have very few of those. I think we have 2 or 3 of these. I think we have 3, and I have one of them here, but I'm glad to sell them. And we have, this is the Theology of God's Openness, which is a non-LDS book that he reviewed. These are, as one person put it, these are all evangelical Christians who don't know they're Mormon yet, but we only have 2 or 3 of those. And so these would be the books you'd be looking for back there. And with that, we'll let him field the questions he desires to field. Wow. You don't have to answer them all, just answer them.
Well, how long do I have?
Why don't you pick 2 or 3, about 3 of them.
Okay, I'll take the easiest ones. What does mutually indwelling mean? Well, I use that term, and it is used in some technical theological discourse to refer to whatever is meant in the Savior's language in John 17:3, where he talks about his being in the Father being in him, and the possibility of our becoming one in them, and so on. There's different ways of spelling that out more fully and more explicitly, but as far as I'm concerned, when I use that word, I'm saying no more than Jesus is saying in John 17 and 3. Did James write anything about the Latter-day Saints? Not very much. In the varieties of religious experience, he makes a brief reference to religious experience within Mormonism, and quotes a letter from a prominent member of the church about our belief in current revelation, that it comes through the living prophet as well as having come in the past. He refers to the Urim and Thummim as one mode of receiving revelation. But he hasn't written very much. A few years ago, Jed Woodworth, who worked for BYU Studies, took a trip to the Harvard Library. There's a William James collection there, to see if he could find books on LDS theology in that William James collection, and see any evidence of things underlined or marginal notes and so on. because the correspondent that James mentions in the Varieties of Religious Experience sent a lot of books on LDS history and doctrine to James, but his search turned up nothing. So at this point, we don't know. Next question, I'm just taking these in order. Is it or is it not Mormon doctrine that God the Father was incarnate on an earth? I noticed that you hedged your response in the Modern Reformation article. In a recent interview, President Hinckley does not appear to actively assert this as official church doctrine. My answer to that question is that it seems rather clear that Joseph Smith taught it in the King Follett Discourse. King Follett Discourse is not canon. And I would suggest that in an official, narrow sense, doctrine should be confined to the standard works and official statements of the First Presidency. And so that's why in my response to Modern Reformation, I said many Latter-day Saints believe that God the Father was incarnate on an earth much the same way that Christ was incarnate on our earth. Personally, I believe that God the Father was so incarnate, but of course that's not official church doctrine. If open theism is correct, how can the Bible say that God, Jesus, knows all things? If God is continually growing in knowledge, then he can only state that he knows more today than yesterday, but he can't claim to know all things. Could you interact with this? Openness theologians have interacted with that question at length. You may want to look at The Openness of God, edited by John Sanders, but it's a book studying out openness beliefs from 5 different leaders of that movement. A better book, a longer book, is The God Who Risks by John Sanders. He devotes about 120 pages to an examination of biblical passages such as the passage God knows all things, as well as other passages that are relevant on one side or the other side of the question, and concludes that the Bible read as a whole rather than in terms of individual proof texts seems to suggest that God grows in knowledge eternally. So if you want a careful examination of biblical passages with regard to that issue, read The God Who Risks by John Sanders. Or another book that he published more recently, Does God Have a Future? Do you reject the label henotheism, and why? I would not be disposed to describe our view as a henotheism. I do believe in the doctrine of theosis. I believe that human beings can become divine beings. And one definition of henotheism would suggest that the divinity consists of a supreme being and a community of lesser beings. I feel uncomfortable with that particular label. Maybe my discomfort is more rhetorical than doctrinal. But Talmage, in his exposition of the first article of faith, as I've shown, actually uses the traditional term Trinity to describe his understanding of the Mormon view of God, and I haven't begun to flesh out the difficulties that the question poses, but I'm much more comfortable thinking of our view as a Trinitarian point of view. Unless that suffices.
Thank you very much.